They said I was a nobody, laughed when I fixed their projector, forgot I was even in the room. So I didn't argue, didn't fight back. I just disappeared and came back, owning the votes that decide their promotions. Now, every time they apply for a raise, they have to hope the man they once mocked checks the box that lets them keep their title. They wanted to forget me. But now, they can't move without me. I wasn't special. Not in their eyes. Just another background name on an all-staff email. A quiet face in the office no one remembered by Friday. I worked in IT support. Basement office? Bad coffee. Fluorescent lights that buzzed like they were trying to quit too. I showed up early, left late, fixed the systems they broke and blamed on bugs. No one asked about my weekend. No one said good morning, and I didn't expect them to. I wasn't one of them. They had power suits and startup equity, lunches that cost more than my weekly groceries, coffee orders that sounded like foreign languages. I had a lanyard and a long list of tickets to close. But I paid attention. I watched who got promoted, who shook hands, who smiled fake smiles over bonuses I knew they didn't earn. I saw how they treated reception, how they mocked janitors when they thought no one was listening. I was always listening. One day, I was called into a conference room to fix the HDMI on the projector. Same team of directors? Same broken connection? Same rushed meeting I wasn't supposed to hear? I plugged the cable in, adjusted the settings. One of them joked, "Let the nobody fix it before the real people show up." They all laughed. I didn't. I didn't even flinch. Just stood there, pressed the button, watched the screen light up, and walked out. But that word, nobody, stayed with me. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I already knew. To them, I wasn't invisible by accident. I was invisible by design. They didn't want to see people like me, the ones who actually kept the machine running, the ones without titles or networks or quarterly bonuses. They thought I was disposable, that if I disappeared tomorrow, another kid with a tech degree would fill my seat. Maybe they were right. Maybe back then I was disposable. But in that moment, standing outside the conference room door, listening to them pitch a marketing strategy based on fake data I'd already flagged twice, I realized something. I don't want to be seen. I want to be necessary. That night, I went home, opened my browser, and typed in something I'd never searched before. How do shareholders influence company promotions? It wasn't rage. It wasn't ego. It was clarity. They made one mistake that day. They didn't fire me. They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They just called me nobody and forgot I was in the room. They forgot I had ears, that I read the same reports, that I understood how their systems worked better than they did. They forgot that nobodies listen, and sometimes nobodies learn. They left the door open. So I walked out quietly and started learning how to own it. I left without a scene, no farewell post, no inbox goodbye, just a quiet resignation email and a badge slid across a desk. They barely noticed, which was perfect, because the less noise I made, the less they remembered me. And the less they remembered me, the easier it was to come back through the side door. I took a job no one cared about. Junior analyst at a supply chain firm 3 blocks away. Lower pay, fewer perks, but more space to move. I wasn't chasing titles anymore. I was chasing tools. I started learning the language of capital. Not tech, not systems, money, balance sheets, private equity, voting rights. I watched tutorials no one finished, took night classes nobody bragged about, read shareholder memos the size of short novels. And slowly, I began to see it. The company I left? It wasn't run by leaders. It was run by votes. The board held power. But the shareholders pulled the strings. And those strings were up for sale. So I bought in. Not all at once. That would have made noise. I started small, a few hundred shares, then a few thousand. Whenever I got a bonus, I didn't upgrade my apartment. I increased my position. Whenever I got a tax return, I didn't book a vacation. I bought another percentage of silence. They still didn't know. Why would they? To them, I was a ghost. Someone who once fixed their projector and faded into HR archives. But my name started appearing in rooms they couldn't see. Investor logs, minority meetings, quarterly vote rosters. And one day, I read a line I'll never forget. Shareholders with 5% or more equity have the right to vote on senior leadership changes. I didn't celebrate, just underlined it in red, taped it to my desk, and kept working. While they were networking at rooftop parties, I was calculating board ratios. While they were laughing over overpriced drinks, I was buying into the very company they used to run unchecked. They forgot I was in the building. Now I was inside the system. Not loud, not flashy, just present. And presence becomes power when you know where to stand. By year 3, my position was no longer minor. I didn't just own shares. I owned leverage. Enough to sit in on investor briefings, enough to receive internal performance reports, enough to have my vote counted at the annual general meeting, and, finally, enough to cast a deciding vote on executive compensation and promotions. The same company where they once laughed at my clothes now waited every quarter for my approval on whether their bonuses cleared. They still didn't know. Not really. They saw my name in email chains, saw my signature on vote summaries, but it never clicked. Because people like that, they never remember the ones they think they're above. But I remembered them. Every face, every voice, every laugh. I remembered the guy who said I'd be stuck in mouse-click purgatory forever. I remembered the woman who said I was technically smart but not management material. I remembered the VP who asked me to refill the water pitcher in a boardroom I wired with Ethernet. And now, their futures passed through my hands. They applied for raises, for position upgrades, for company equity splits, and every time their names came across my desk, I paused, just long enough to enjoy the irony. Then I checked the metrics, checked the politics, checked the tone of their last motivational memo. Sometimes I voted yes. Most times, I didn't. Not to be cruel, but because I no longer believed they added value. And isn't that what they used to say about me? Eventually, a few of them noticed. A board whisper here, a second glance there. One of them emailed, "Hey, are you the same guy who used to work IT back in the day?" If so, wow, small world. I didn't reply, because this wasn't a reunion. It was a reckoning. I didn't need them to remember my name. I needed them to feel my presence the next time they hit submit on a promotion request. Because I wasn't in IT anymore. I was in the infrastructure now, and the systems I fixed are the same ones I now use to decide which of them still got to call themselves leaders. They said I was a nobody, so I became the vote that decides if they stay somebody. It was during the fourth quarter promotion review, boardroom lights too bright, water bottles sweating against polished wood, one too many suits pretending they knew what came next. But I knew. I had already read the shortlists. I already knew the names. And there it was, near the top. Nathan K., Executive Vice President of Product. The same man who once laughed in my face when I fixed his Wi-Fi in a meeting full of investors. The same one who said, "Good help is hard to find. Great help stays invisible." He didn't even look at me when he said it. Didn't have to. I was the invisible one, right? Now, he had a problem. His department missed targets 3 quarters in a row. Morale was low, retention worse, but still, he wanted a promotion. I flipped through his packet. Achievements, charts, peer reviews, all dressed up like performance, but none of it convinced me, because under it all, I saw someone who hadn't grown. He was still managing upward, still stepping on people like me to stay ahead. The committee went around. Most said yes. Some hesitated. Then it came to me. Last vote. Waited. Final. He looked at me, and this time, he did look. Eyes flicked across the table. Recognition landed. Too late. His face tightened. Posture straightened. And then, that same fake smile I remembered from years ago. "I believe we've met," he said, like we were old friends. "You used to be in IT, right? Small world." I didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Didn't acknowledge the history he was suddenly eager to rewrite. I set the packet down. My vote is no. No explanation. No drama. Just precision. The room went still. He swallowed. Looked around for help. None came. Because this wasn't a debate. It was a decision. And this time, I was the one making it. Afterward, he lingered in the hallway. Walked up to me as I buttoned my coat. "Look, I didn't mean anything back then. You were just starting out. We all were. I was young." I looked at him. Calm. So was I. Then I walked out. I didn't tell anyone. Not the friends I had grown close to over the years. Not the mentors who guided me quietly behind closed doors. No announcement. No "look at me now" speech. No dramatic mic drop. Because some victories aren't for the timeline, they're for the ledger. The people who once mocked me now added my name to their quarterly memos. They built their bonuses on reports I had to approve. Each time they opened their inbox, they saw the same email signature they once ignored. But now it meant something. It meant authority. Not because I demanded it, because I built it. I didn't show up to destroy anyone. I didn't walk in with a list of names to ruin. I just held the pen they used to pretend didn't exist. And when it came time to vote, I used it. Calmly, deliberately, legally. And the silence that followed? That was louder than anything they ever said to me in that conference room years ago. Now, I sit in meetings where their voices shake when presenting numbers. Not because I intimidate, but because I'm no longer beneath them. I'm above the layer they once used to protect themselves. I see them at events sometimes, the ones who once wouldn't remember my name. Now they shake my hand too long, look for eye contact too often. Tell other people in the room how we go way back. I smile, not because I need them to remember me, but because they finally realized I never left. I never needed revenge. I needed time. And time gave me everything: respect, equity, influence. They used to decide who mattered. Now they hope I think they still do. There was a time I wanted them to remember me, to say my name in the room, to apologize, admit they were wrong, admit they saw it now, who I really was. But that version of me? He outgrew the need. Because the truth is, if they had respected me then, maybe I would have stayed where I was. Grateful to be noticed, working for a nod, living for crumbs of recognition. But they didn't. They dismissed me, belittled me, forgot me. And that freed me. They thought they were locking me out. All they really did was show me a door they didn't know existed, a door that didn't lead to revenge. It led to ownership. I never wanted to be their boss. I wanted to build something they couldn't control, something that didn't ask for permission to enter the room, something that made them uncomfortable. Not by shouting, but by existing. Now, I don't need them to say my name, because when the votes are counted, it's already there, at the top of the page. And when decisions are made, it's printed on the line they need to sign under. I was never a nobody. I was just the quietest part of a system they didn't think could fight back. But the thing about systems, they run better when they're rebuilt by people who remember what it's like to be ignored. So that's what I became. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, not the face of the brand, just the presence they couldn't move forward without. They said I was a nobody. So I became the vote that decides if they stay somebody.